You see, something very unusual is happening in the world right now, and most people haven't noticed it yet. Those who have started to awaken, who have begun to see beyond the illusion, are quietly fading away. Not with noise or attention. Not with announcements or dramatic exits. They're simply stepping aside, moving into the background, choosing silence over chaos. If you felt this pull yourself, if conversations feel meaningless, gatherings feel heavy, and the world's noise feels unbearable, then what I'm about to say may bring relief. Because this withdrawal isn't sickness. It isn't antisocial behavior. It's actually the most natural reaction when someone truly wakes up. When I say, wakes up, I don't mean reading a few spiritual books or talking about unity. I mean that moment when the curtain lifts and you suddenly see that most people are moving through life half asleep, acting out routines, repeating patterns, wearing masks, completely unaware that they are asleep. When you're asleep too, this doesn't feel strange. You fit right in. You can talk endlessly about nothing and feel content. You can chase after approval, status, or possessions and call it happiness. But once you truly see through it, everything changes. It's like walking out of a dark cinema into the bright sunlight. You can't go back and watch the movie the same way. You know it's just shadows and flickering lights. It's not real anymore. This is what happens to awakened people today. They find it almost impossible to keep participating in society's dream, not because they think they're better, but because their entire system can no longer bear the illusion. Our world runs on an invisible agreement, an agreement to pretend that our roles are who we are, that our opinions are our own, that our busyness has purpose. Everyone must keep pretending for the play to continue. But when someone wakes up, they forget their script. They break character. They begin to look directly at the audience, and that makes everyone else uneasy. The awakened one sees what lies beneath, the fear under the confidence, the emptiness behind the ambition. They see that most arguments and divisions are illusions, projections of inner conflict. When someone shouts, they are the problem, the awakened person sees only a mirror, someone trying to avoid their own shadow. When society splits into sides, the awakened one sees both sides fighting their own reflections. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You can't take the performance seriously anymore. So you withdraw. Not because you despise others, but because you can't keep betraying what you now know. Every conversation demands pretending you don't see the truth. Every social event requires you to play a version of yourself that no longer exists. And finally, the soul whispers, enough. Stop pretending. Stop performing. Go where you can breathe. This is not running away. It's not rejecting responsibility. It's realizing that remaining in an unconscious environment begins to harm your consciousness, just as a plant cannot grow in darkness. The awakened person feels this deeply, that staying among the asleep doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it drains life itself. They must constantly guard their awareness, filter projections, and hold their center amidst the fog. It's invisible work that no one notices, but it exhausts the spirit. Eventually, they understand. They are spending all their energy just to stay conscious in places that keep pulling them back into sleep. So they make a choice. They choose awareness over approval, truth over comfort, inner peace over belonging. And that's when the quiet disappears first. The fading away begins subtly. You leave social media, not with bitterness, but because you finally see what it is, a machine designed to keep people distracted, reactive, asleep. Every scroll invites comparison, judgment, or outrage. For an awakened mind, it feels like swimming through mud. So you stop. You delete the apps. You stop checking, and suddenly hours of your life come back to you. Then, you start to distance yourself from certain social circles. Not out of anger, not with grand farewells, you just stop showing up. You realize that most gatherings are not true connections but performances, where people act out their happiness, success, and certainty. And you can't play those roles anymore. Your real self has no interest in pretending. Next, you begin to step away from certain relationships. Not because love is gone, but because those relationships were built around who you used to be, the version of you that lived half asleep. Now, you speak a different language. You exist in a different vibration. Sometimes, even your career begins to dissolve. This is often the hardest part, because society ties identity to work. But once you awaken, you can no longer pretend to care about meaningless goals. You can't keep serving systems you've already seen through. And so, you quietly let go, not because you've given up, but because staying would mean killing the consciousness you've worked so hard to nurture. And then, something unexpected happens. You discover that your withdrawal doesn't lead to loneliness, it leads to freedom. In solitude, you stop being lonely for the first time in your life. There's a difference between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is what you feel when surrounded by people who cannot truly see you. Aloneness is the peace of being your whole self without the noise. When you finally step away, you realize that even when you were among people, you were often alone anyway, because real connection requires two conscious beings meeting each other. When you're awake in a room full of sleepers, there's no one to meet. But in the quiet, in that sacred silence, you meet yourself. Not the mask, not the performance. The real you, the breathing, aware, luminous being underneath it all. And this meeting is not empty. It is homecoming. For the first time, you can hear your own thoughts clearly without interference. You can feel your emotions without absorbing everyone else's. You can finally sense what you truly want, what you genuinely believe, and who you really are. This stage is what many call the hermit phase. And it's necessary. You cannot evolve while staying attached to every version of your past self. The caterpillar must enter the cocoon before becoming a butterfly. So you go inward. You rest in stillness. You begin deep work, the kind that can only be done in silence. This is not avoidance or escapism. It's integration. It's processing all the unconscious energy you've carried for years. It's healing from the exhaustion of pretending. And this, my friend, is not easy work. It is much harder than staying asleep. Because once you wake up, you can no longer blame others for your suffering. You can't hide behind distractions or point fingers. You have to face everything, your pain, your fears, your shadows, and you must do it alone. But the beauty is this: once you do that inner work, once you face your darkness and find your authenticity, you become unshakable. You no longer need anyone to tell you who you are. You stop chasing approval or belonging. You have something far more precious, yourself. And from that wholeness, if you ever return to the world, you return as someone transformed, not to fit in again, but to offer something real. Ring begins. When you come back from solitude, you return as someone new. You no longer move through the world to fit in, you move through it with quiet awareness. You live at the edge between two realities, the sleeping world and the awakened one. You're present, but not attached. Involved, but not entangled. Maybe you work with those who are just beginning to wake up. Maybe you create art that touches people's deeper selves. Maybe you write words that become small lights for those walking the same invisible path. Or perhaps you simply live your life in such truth and simplicity that others feel something stir within them just by being near you. But one thing is certain: you can never return to the old way. Once you've tasted awareness, you can't fall back into unconsciousness. Once you've met your authentic self, you can't go back to wearing masks. Once you've seen through the illusion, you can't pretend the game is real. Some may ask, isn't it selfish to step back from the world? Shouldn't we stay and help others wake up? And here's the truth: you cannot guide anyone if you haven't found your own clarity first. You cannot give what you do not yet have. If you haven't done your inner work, if you haven't faced your own shadow, healed your wounds, and discovered your truth, then your efforts to awaken others will only spread more confusion. You'll become another lost soul preaching about light while still trapped in darkness. So the most compassionate thing you can do is to awaken fully yourself, to do the hard, honest, silent work of consciousness. And when you are truly awake, you will naturally become a light to those ready to see. Understand this. Most people are not ready. They don't want to wake up yet. They want to keep playing their roles, chasing their stories, living their dreams, and that's perfectly fine. That is their path. Your purpose is not to force their awakening. Your purpose is to wake up yourself, and to be quietly available for those who are ready to rise too. This is why the awakened are disappearing. They are retreating to places where they can be authentic, where they can breathe deeply, where they can grow without having to explain or defend their awareness. They're finding one another in quiet spaces, forming small circles of consciousness in a world still half asleep. They're creating gentle ripples of a new way of living, spaces built on truth instead of illusion, awareness instead of distraction, peace instead of noise. And this, truly, is not abandonment. It is evolution. The world doesn't need more people repeating the same unconscious patterns. It needs living examples of awareness, individuals who have walked through the dark and found their light. So if you feel that call to step back, if you find yourself losing interest in the noise, the arguments, the endless performance, listen to that pull. It is not weakness. It is your soul's way of calling you home. Do not fight it. Do not feel guilty for it. Give yourself permission to disappear for a while. Because this is not the end, it's the beginning. In your solitude, you will integrate, heal, and grow stronger. And one day when you will return not as who you were, but as who you truly are, whole, grounded, and real. This disappearance is not vanishing. It is preparation. You are not abandoning the world. You are preparing something for it. Something invisible now, but essential later. Like a seed breaking open in the dark soil, you are dissolving so that something far greater can emerge. Like a caterpillar dissolving in the cocoon, you are becoming what you were always meant to be. And when the world begins to awaken, it will need you. It will need your presence, your calm, your truth. So disappear if you must. Do it without guilt, without apology. Because in your disappearing, you are not leaving the world behind. You are quietly building the world that is yet to come.